We have an awesome one today. Today we have Chris Pearson, well known in the Salesforce ecosystem, especially if you follow LinkedIn and chats and posts and all that stuff. But pumped to have you on today, Chris.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, and I know we were chatting. We when we join, it's almost like we know each other because of the engagement that we have on LinkedIn, and we comment on each other's stuff. We follow each other's stuff, and it's crazy with LinkedIn how you get to know people virtually, and then it's almost like when you meet them in person or like this that you kind of know them. So it's really cool meeting you in person as well.
Yeah, I think I recall maybe what attracted me originally to just to your viewpoint, but I think it was like years ago, or at least it was like 24 or 23, and you're talking about like the quality of deliveries in our ecosystem and just kind of like that, how it's declined so much and kind of left customers in alert, and how it was impacting kind of the employment picture, and just that kind of the lens of how Salesforce is viewed, where potentially maybe there's a lot of customers out there with some failed implementations that aren't thinking so highly of the software.
Yeah, we're definitely going through some changes. I think, especially during the pandemic phase and the digital transformation, I think a lot of companies were just hiring whoever they could at that time. There was new talent. They were grabbing anybody they could, any company. And now they're kind of looking at the fallout, quote unquote, and say, all right, what do we have here? I know tech debt is a lot of what we talk about as well. How do you tackle tech debt? How do companies navigate that? But yeah, I definitely, it's one of my topics I talk about on LinkedIn. And ironically, it's a good question because I think you're someone, there's a few out there in the ecosystem that are fairly almost daily. You give your viewpoints and you give information, you comment and engage. And actually, that's how you and I kind of even got to know each other when we were commenting with each other. And I noticed that I, even today, have a hard time keeping up with comments because it's not a job, but you have to take it serious, right? Like it takes time, it takes thought to actually respond. So what's your view on LinkedIn and the value of creating content, commenting on people's content, and how do you keep up with things on LinkedIn?
Well, I think it first starts with you kind of have to have what the kids call the DTR conversation with social media. Define the relationship. Like, what are you trying to get out of it? There's, I think, like LinkedIn and many other sites. You get, it means different things to different people. Some people are there just to find a job. Some people are there just to promote maybe a corporate message or just to sell. Others are there to learn. And then there's, maybe there's like some hybrids, and some other reasons to be on there. But for me, it started like, I've been on the site for many, many years. I think like I joined it like in the 2000s. So I've been on it, but been one of those lurkers that had kind of been afraid to put myself out there, was concerned about maybe like I'd say something stupid, or that wasn't intelligent, or I get into some arguments with some randos, or just I don't know, I had a lot of hesitation towards it. And then I realized, I guess I took stock of my like professional network. I wasn't really happy with it. Yeah, I think we were maybe starting to be on the precipice of this current job market where it's really tough out there for like knowledge workers to find a job. Competition out there. I've seen the rise and kind of the downfall of the remote work, some type of work, and that those remote jobs are very competitive. So I looked at my network and was like, this is not really like representative of who I am. I don't feel like I'm connected to individuals who have like a great vision for their career, for the industry, for the things that I'm interested in. So I just start building that. And it's something that takes a lot of time. I think I see so many, you and I have probably seen the same type of people who maybe have a presence on that site and then find themselves in a bad situation where maybe their role is eliminated, and like the only post that they've made in years is, hi everyone, I'm looking for a new role. Can you help me out? And
Right.
I didn't want to be that type of person. I didn't want to like, if things were going to go down, I wanted to have like a network that I could depend on, or at least rely on to help me find that next gig. Like the older I get, the longer I've been in this industry, I realize it's taking me longer and longer to find that next career, that next job, because I've got all this list of requirements. I want it to be, I want it to be the right working environment. I want to work with people, have a certain mindset, have a certain set of opportunities and challenges that I think I thrive well. So it took that kind of approach to build that network and then stick your neck out, start to share content. And then it takes like again that relationship with social networks. Like what are you getting out of it? I continue to tell myself like vanity metrics, there's a reason why they call them vanity metrics. Like they literally they don't fulfill you. They just leave you with these like digital bits and bytes that represent, whether someone like pressed a thumb, on their device, on their screen, on some words that you wrote. And so I uh, continue to have that kind of discussion with myself because I'll be like, oh gosh, I've got the greatest knowledge to share, and it will get maybe two people will be like, cool, interesting, Chris. But then you have a bad dad joke or a bad pun, and it's like viral, with
Right.
all people saying things. So you got to kind of have that relationship with what you're getting out of.
Yeah, because I think even this right here is a good example of us meeting on LinkedIn, essentially having a network. We're doing a podcast episode. We'll probably know each other moving forward, all because we engaged, we commented, we supported each other's posts, etc. I think this is even a good example of the value of it. And I did a post. I think that connections and followers are a form of digital currency. You don't know when you're going to use it. You don't know how valuable it's going to get, but I do consider it a currency that you'll be able to spend, quote unquote, or leverage at some point. Because I agree, some people have like 215 followers. They never post, and then they say, "Hey, looking for a job," and it's like, well, that's going to go to like 16 people probably, right, in your network. It's too late to build it. So how much time do you think you spend per day on LinkedIn? Just out of curiosity.
Oh my gosh, I could check my probably like the top. It's probably in those top apps up there with like the like Mail or Spotify or something. But I was, the I like the early mornings. Like I have kind of like my daily routine and try and find a way to like when I'm going through maybe like exercise or a walk or a run to consume some news. Like I've always been a news junkie, so trying to build a list of influencers or content creators, whatever you want to call them, but people who have interesting content that's applicable. And so it's a matter of consuming that, starting to feel like you've got like something to say to that can contribute to the discussion. And it's kind of a work in progress. I've always kind of tried to like, there's plenty of times where I'm just like, it's just like an enthusiastic reaction or a well done or anything like that. But it's much more interesting to get into like a discussion on those threads for me.
For sure. So I guess since virtually everybody's in the Salesforce ecosystem at this point, listen to this. So what's your background and how did you get into the Salesforce ecosystem?
Well, I've been a lifelong business analyst. So that's how I got my start in the world of technology 20 something years ago. It was back then we didn't have a lot of SaaS apps. We built custom apps. So everything was kind of from the ground up, whether it was .NET, Oracle, or Java, or any of the other languages out there. Everything was for the most part like a custom build. There were some systems that you'd configure, kind of like Salesforce is today, but Salesforce was in its early infancy. Um, Fast forward, I had kind of moved around as a BA in different industries and was thrown onto a project where the organization had Salesforce. They had acquired another organization, and they said, we're needing to merge the two orgs together, and you're going to be on the project. And from then on, I made every mistake possible in that project. That was probably like one of the worst projects I've done, just because you have no idea what to do. It's like I'm like a
Right.
business analyst. What do I do with these sharing rules? I literally think there's a point where a business stakeholder communicated sharing rules to me, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna file these away in the circular file, and just like never implement. I did not know what to do with things. But I learned a lot of lessons with that project, and kind of saw the future that this out of the box software is very flexible. Build change. A lot of IT managers saying, "Oh gosh, we could build our legacy app in Salesforce in a matter of days or weeks versus the months and years that had gone into some other investments." So I decided to kind of hitch my wagon to that train, and just from there was able just to kind of parlay that into different industries, like having roles with a little bit more um, control, a little bit more like span of control, and landed a role at another software company where I was kind of like one of the sales operations individuals. So that was like taking me out of the world of IT, and now I had to manage the systems, but I reported into sales ops, and so that gave me this whole different perspective. I was no longer as concerned about uptime and a lot of like security and patches, and much more on like the forecast and like reporting and how can we give more metrics to our executives. And so that kind of opened my eyes to like a different side of the world from a systems standpoint. And then from was lucky enough from there to get a leadership opportunity at a real estate organization that was brand new. They were going to be implementing Salesforce. And those are the projects that I think we all kind of really like, because you get to kind of like shape it. It's like building your own home versus moving into a used home. And I've got a used home and it's great. But like if I got to completely design the walls and the doors and the windows and every single last bedroom and kitchen fixture, it's kind of like built to suit with your own personalities.
Yep. And you know exactly from day one what's there, the foundation, how it was built, all the nooks and crannies. Like, you know, all those details that you apply later on as well.
Exactly.
I agree. So then I know we talk a lot here about admins and developers, but I think what's interesting about you is I think you have an interest and are vocal and share thoughts on AI, especially around Salesforce AI and AI in general. So how did you get interested in the AI side of things?
Well, I was probably maybe later to the game than some. There's always been AI's been around for a while, right? Like we've got like autocorrect on our phones, and Salesforce have had various predictive technologies, but I found those to be kind of like hard to wield for me as an application professional. Like if I'm a business analyst at heart, then I love to have process flow diagrams and kind of logical statements. And I found that to be overwhelmingly complex. But the world of generative AI, I remember like asking some AI product to like write me a sentence about how Salesforce administrators deal with like multi-select pick lists. And I got like, and I gave, so it was a really crappy prompt, but I got this answer back that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, how did it know to give me that kind of depth and detail? And it just kicked off a curiosity with me that I haven't had since like I got started in this industry. Like when I took that first like Salesforce role and I was moving around in those different positions, I was like had a thirst for knowledge. I was reading every single blog, all the release. I was like combing through the release notes like line by line, just really trying to drink like from the fire hose all of the stuff, all of the knowledge that had been published about Salesforce. And I kind of like gotten to a point where I was like, I'm like, it doesn't excite me as much, but this world of AI is so new and you can do similar things just like Salesforce. Like it's just using your words. If I can write a good sentence, which that wasn't really a good sentence that I just told you, but if I could like articulate,
Right. Yeah.
then I can get some really powerful results, and I can start to teach myself new things, and I can start to have I can have explanations for things, and then I could start to not have to think as hard. So it's kind of like almost motivated me out of my own desire to be lazy. That's definitely part of it.
Right. Because so then, are you implementing things in the current real estate environment in that system with AI to try to introduce it step by step, a little at a time? Are you using it for other things, or are you using it at all today?
So I think there's a difference out there in like there's like the personal side and there's kind of like the personal productivity side of AI. And then there's like the enterprise systems where it's like AI for all. And it's kind of and that's it's very similar to how you do business systems where everybody gets roughly the same experience and all of that. And those projects are expensive. They take vision, they take forethought and all of that. And so that's not something that I'm dabbling in yet. I'm definitely aware of all the solutions and love understanding how they work and kind of like their shortcomings and where they're great at. But there's so much opportunity on just at the individual level. Like how can I make an admin or a developer more efficient by teaching them how to use these tools? How can I do? And so that's what I've done is working with my admins, working with my devs, working with my QA professionals and finding literally a way to embed AI in every single person's workflow. I mean, all the way up to like Scrum Master and Project Manager. And even at the like the director level, there's plenty of times where someone asks me a technical question, I have to be, I'm expected to be an expert like that. How do you get those kinds of answers? How do I get enough knowledge so that I can speak intelligently about a meeting that just got dropped on my calendar for, the next day with a bunch of
Right.
executives to evaluate something that I had never even heard of. And so it's really been exciting to find all those use cases.
I think that is refreshing, and I think people are really gonna. I don't know what the right word is. It's practical. It's like I think people are envisioning that AI is like boiling the ocean of Salesforce, and there's just all these agents and agent force and AI is just like developing things on its own, and you don't need admins or developers. But I think that approach and how you described it, I think, is a great introduction because I agree. It's like practical. It's like let's use it in other ways as well first to leverage it to enhance what we do, to speed up what we do, to correct what we do. I even think some good uses of AI are the simple things, right? Generate an email, get an email in customer support, and have it understand a sentiment from the customer and maybe be able to auto respond. Like those basic functions that AI is good at now, I think are smart and a good way to approach getting into AI and leveraging it either within or without or around Salesforce. I think people might even take a big breath after hearing that, just knowing that it's there's other ways to use it. There's a ton of different ways to use it, and you don't have to go all the way to 100 when you can start with 10, 20, and keep building up with what you do with AI. I think that's a good approach and a good way to leverage it.
I think it can be really intimidating to be thinking it's for peers or for other IT professionals to be like, oh my gosh, we're supposed to implement a chatbot that has got to answer and it's got to be, the perfect kind of answer, the right answer and all of this. But let's just take the problem that AI can solve, which it can analyze text and it can produce more text and apply it to less risky problems that we have so that we build our understanding of like how it works. And so for me, we run a help desk for Salesforce and we get anywhere from like 200 to 400 or 500 support tickets on a monthly basis. And I must ask my support analysts, what are the repetitive issues? What are the trends? I ask that question so much. It's really hard to see, there's an expression, see the forest for the trees, like it's like the support team is like working individual tickets. They're trying to remember to follow up on the P1 issue that was created yesterday that they got to make sure was resolved. it's really hard for that kind of role to say, well, let me just look above all of that and tell you, all of the trends that are going. But that's a perfect use for AI as we like pump all of our tickets into an LLM and we make sure that there's a data retention strategy. Start to ask it questions, start to ask it what are the most frequently used words and what is the sentiment of with regards to these different processes. And so we started to kind of like tease out some learnings and finding things that human just wasn't able to keep track of because they've already got enough work to keep them fully busy.
Yeah, and on this topic, I know it's I don't know if controversial is right in the ecosystem, but AI and the role of Salesforce admins and developers, and in 3-5 years, how do you see that all coming together, or colliding, or merging, or just what are your thoughts on what's coming up?
I think it goes back to a little of what you were talking about with me with LinkedIn. It's kind of like I do feel that if if we've got AI tools now that can go out and conduct research or can generate all sorts of text or analyze hundreds of pages of a manual or process out like millions of records of data, then it makes sense that AI can do the clicks and the programming that we're asking our admins and devs of today to do. So that is an inevitability that it will be doing that. Someone needs to kind of tell the machine what good looks like. I think we'll always need what good. No one's going to be able to define what good looks like in every single scenario. So there'll always be that, but those expectations are going to be much higher for the admins and developers. That they know what good design looks like. They're going to be able to provide the details and uphold the standards for an organization and make sure that those business requirements are met. I think everyone's going to kind of shift into that design/architect role, where maybe they're not the doer, but they're the designer, and they're making sure it's like a cohesive package of work, features, or whatever it is. But the individuals who got by just on their technical know-how, like on their ability to, like, I know the limits of Salesforce like the back of my hand. I think that's starting to get watered down. And that was like Chris Pearson was that professional. Like in 2015 or 2016, I felt like that was my my ability to control, or my ability to market myself was like, oh, I've got all this like technical knowledge, and Salesforce is this hard to come by skill. We've seen all of that evaporate in the last couple.
Yep, yep. And kind of along those lines, what are some of I guess, mistakes, I would call it, that companies do when they're building out Salesforce? What are kind of some of the more common, things that add tech debt, mistakes, things like that, and from a design perspective that you see is kind of most common in with companies building out Salesforce systems?
There's a broad sense of that. I think it depends on type of project, but if we were to look, to not give you a consulting answer of it depends, I think it comes down to your stakeholders. How clear is their goal or objectives? How much of an understanding did the implementation team have on what the true problem was and the solution to deliver that? I feel like I've seen plenty of things where it's like, man, that's really complicated. Like, how did you arrive at this crazy mess of spaghetti code? And it was like, oh, that's what the requirements said. So if you look at that, whose fault is that? It's not the business stakeholder. I think to me, it's a little bit how that EA or solution architect or TA teased all of that information out and led the business stakeholder down the right path.
Right. And I think, especially in the more enterprises, when teams keep going through kind of 2-week sprints, and it's and delivering and then demoing, and then the client coming on and saying this looks good, it's like great, and they're on to the next user story, the next requirement, and it's this perpetual engine of from a development team's perspective or implementation team, you're like, I got my stories. I'm going to work them. I'm going to demo it. It looks good. I'm going to keep going to the next one. And before you know it, 2 years come down the road, and you, you have to kind of go back and see what if everything was designed the right way. Is it all still plugging together? Did a bunch of things change or impact what we built? But it's that definitely I see like that every 2 weeks. Let's get it done. Let's demo it done, and just the being able to take a breath, especially in enterprises that are moving and growing. It just gets tough to take a step back and look at the design and take the time to design it right because they're worried about getting requirements out the door.
Totally. I like there's like an expression of just like nature abhors a vacuum. And when you're just delivering software like in a vacuum just to check off some stories, then you're probably leaving some processes, some surprises for yourself. I think maybe the lesson there is literally figure out like how are you like with whatever you built, how are you gonna run it or maintain it next year or 6 months from now? And just trying to kind of ask yourself those questions if you have enough knowledge, documentation, or even the skills to be able to change that, because we all know that that's inevitable. Is like things will change, requirements will change, leadership will change, the needs of a business will change, new products will change. Everything's kind of like a at a point in time.
People changes. It all just changes. The only constants change for sure.
Right.
So if they kind of go back to a lot of admins and developers listen to this, but so moving in the next 1 to 3 years, what do you think the Salesforce admins and developers should be learning, training on, getting ready for? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just to kind of come from that direct question, should they be learning communication skills so they can work with the business? Should they be getting more hands-on? Should they obviously learning AI, but just advice for especially the people coming into the ecosystem that are maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and they're just kind of getting going? I guess what advice would you give to them at this point in their careers?
I think it comes down to communication skills has been like the only constant in like through all like the technology waves and whatever new buzzwords. But communication comes down to working with like team members. So whether you may be in a team or in a role where you're working with technical team members, okay, so can you communicate with them? Oftentimes when we're in those roles, communicate to non-technical. So how is your ability to translate those concepts to a non-technical audience, and then vice versa? Plenty of times you'll be talking to a non-technical audience that's giving you direction. How do you then translate that to something that for the rest of your team or for yourself to actually deliver, take that and work on that? And that's going to be evident in your ability to work with AI. I mean, it works with your words and your voice and pictures. So it hasn't yet worked with your mind, your thoughts. So at least right now, you've still got to be able to like get those thoughts out into words or written text. And so to me, it's comes down to communication.
Like, right, it's only as good as its prompt. Like AI is only as good as its prompt concept, right?
Right.
Pretty much we're able to give it.
Much as it knows about you, that's what it knows about you, is whatever you're telling it.
Yep. And I know I did a post on this. I think that you actually liked it or something like that as well. But one thing I try to recommend for people also is follow your strengths and what you enjoy doing. So if you don't like talking with people, don't be a business analyst. If you like sitting down for 12 hours a day and doing code, do code. If you enjoy interacting with people, meeting people, being the conduit, and that's what you enjoy and it's your strength, and I'd recommend going down that path, because you want to be happy in your job, you want to be good at what you do, you want to do what you're good at, and that's kind of some of the advice I've been given in the couple decades that I've been leading and building teams and companies as well.
I like that. I was reading something from one of the talking heads out there, is kind of controversial, Scott Galloway. He's like a professor at a business school and likes to shake things up, but he was questioning that whole follow your passion, and I can kind of see that, because it's like in college and I still am. I was obsessed with music. I love listening to music. I love going to live music, but I haven't figured out a way for it to music, because I have no musical talent. I haven't figured out a wait for it to like pay for my life, my mortgage, bills, and all of it.
Exactly. Yep.
Let me
Yep.
find something to my strengths, and somehow that's been this career.
It's awesome. It's been awesome so far. So I have a couple questions to kind of wrap up as well. So if you could kind of do a magic wonder, if you could change something about the Salesforce ecosystem from like any perspective, mine personally is the mascot, but I won't, because it's a whole side topic. We have the mascots, right? The teddy bears that I bring home to my kid from a conference, and then they play with it for 5 days and throw it away. That's cool, right? But then we have Matthew McConaughey, right? He's in the Wild West, and I think Salesforce is still trying to find their brand a little bit or something, but that's a whole different topic. Um, but what's something you would, if you could do a magic wand or change about the ecosystem, what would you have?
I think it would be resetting and perception for certain things. I feel like that for many years we have put a lot of emphasis into certifications, which is an online test that basically executes one time, and then you have to answer 3 or 4 questions, like every other year. And
Right. Yeah.
it's not a grade of who you are as a professional, or the impact that you can make on other individuals. And I think that that's kind of like one. There's the MVP program or various other programs, or there's even just the perception that like everything that this organization, Salesforce, is doing is right, or is like the only thing. And I think that telling modern knowledge workers to look at everything with a critical eye. Like what are the competitors out there? What are the startups doing? What are the thought leaders doing? And use all of that to inform your opinion about like what's best for you from a career standpoint, or your organization technology standpoint. Because it can be a little bit of an echo chamber sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So I guess, and then to wrap up, so where is Chris going? What do you see Chris in the next 3 5 years, and your interests, and just where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think this AI stuff is not going anywhere. So it's trying to find ways to like kind of permeate every single part of an organization. And I've had the privilege of working with like different functional groups. Like a marketing group is like a really easy win. But there's some other groups out there like finance or accounting that may be kind of saying like, how is this text generator going to actually help my job, or me look at things differently. And so I'd love the opportunity to continue to expand and work. I feel like as an application professional, I've been doing that for my whole career, working with different groups and solving it with technology. But this is just a different type of technology that's not intimidating once you understand how it works and how to get results that are accepted to you. And so it's really continuing that mission.
Awesome. That's awesome. No doubt I'll be seeing you in the Salesforce and AI side of things coming up, and probably one of the pioneers or leaders in that space as well. So it was awesome talking with you today, Chris. A lot of great insights, a great discussion. And I really appreciate you being a guest on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. This is great.
Awesome. Talk to you later.